Hi, this talks about Terminalwire that I gave at a Ruby meetup in San Francisco at the GitHub headquarters. I think it does a pretty good job of explaining what Terminalwire is and how it can fit into your stack. So without further delay, enjoy the talk.
If you're wondering what is Terminalwire, it's awesome that I get to present this to a Rails crowd and a Ruby crowd because we get it. We're all about compressing complexity. So Terminalwire is kind of like Hotwire for command line apps. And I'm going to kind of illustrate what I mean with Sticky McStickface here. So everybody say hello to Sticky McStickface. Hi, Sticky. All right. So Sticky wants to ship a CLI for LitHub. How many of you have used the LitHub CLI? What about the GitHub CLI? All right. So I'm going to talk about how you might build LitHub based on how GitHub works. All right. First thing you do, you set out, you build an API, probably some kind of JSON API. You can see up here, I actually have some handcrafted JSON in case you're wondering what that looks like. And then Sticky has to code an API client in Golang. And Sticky's not happy because Go's not as expressive as Ruby. But he just plows forward because Go is a great CLI tool. And then after all that, he has to do a bunch of integration testing to make sure that the CLI that he wrote in Go works with the JSON API. A lot of moving parts though. All right, quick question. What has Sticky McStickface not done yet? Just shout it out. Ship? He shipped. The API is out there. He actually has not worked on the CLI yet. He's just worked on the API server and the API client. All right, there's the answer. Sticky has not built the CLI yet. Finally, Sticky builds the front end that sits on top of the API client that lives inside of the CLI. Go, Sticky, go. Sticky's done, right? Nope. Now Sticky has to figure out, okay, well, I have these binaries compiling. How do I get this out to the world? How do I tell people to deploy it? And don't forget the docs, Sticky. All right. So there's a lot of moving parts there to ship a CLI. You have to build an API and you have to build a client, and there's a lot of moving parts. The hard part, though, is whenever Sticky McStickface has to make a change to the command line application. So he painstakingly updates the API. He has to, of course, have versioning. He changes a few things. Sticky's not getting very happy because now he has to do some more manual and automated integration testing. And then he had to change the API. So now Sticky McStickface has to figure out how to go out and deprecate all the old Go clients that were put out there. Sorry, Sticky. All right. Anyway, Sticky, he finally prevails. He ships the new API and the new client, and everything's good. He deprecated everything. Just kidding. Sticky gets an email from Eggy McEggface that he broke the API for their biggest customer. What does Sticky do? Does he roll back the API and break the new clients, or does he make sure that the old clients work and rolls back the API and save the day for the new customer? Sorry, Sticky. The end. All right, so to put that into kind of more of a classic picture that you might see today, if you're building a CLI client, kind of like what Stripe or GitHub pushes out there, you're probably going to build something that looks like this. You start with the server. We're kind of familiar with that. You have a Rails server. Maybe you put a JSON API on it. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to build a CLI. Maybe you'll use Golang or something like that. You have to make an API client that can talk to the server. And then, of course, you have to have the terminal and do all that stuff. So I don't know when it happened, but one day I was thinking through this and I thought, well, what if we just deleted the API and get rid of all that? And we replace it with what command lines already have, which is standard IO. There's a few more things beyond standard IO that we'll get to. Oh, all right. So I'm quickly going to jump into a demo and kind of show you what it looks like inside of Rails. So this is actual working code right now. Can everybody see at least that stuff? Or should I zoom in? All right, good. All right, so we'll start with the command line. We just have this thing called bin tinysap. And if I run it, You can see there's just one command in there, and let's see what's actually in this binary and what's going on. So a few seconds, you may have immediately noticed like, whoa, there's a lot of latency going on whenever you fire up that CLI application. Anybody know what's going on here? In my prototype, I'm booting up the entire Rails application. So most of the latency is coming from that. I'm booting Rails so that I can grab this and connect to it via WebSockets. Whenever this thing finally goes to production, we won't have to boot Rails, so it should be pretty quick. Anyway, if we run the binary and we want to start adding features, I'll switch into Rails here. And I don't know if you can see this, but I have in the app CLI folder, this is just Tor or Thor. So let's add a version feature to this. I hit save, and then I want to run that again. We see version is there. And what's kind of neat about this is what I didn't have to do. I did not have to go out and change an API and coordinate all these clients and do all this kind of crazy stuff. So let's go ahead and have a feature where we can open the website. So we run that. Again, this is just Tor or Thor. So if I launch it, and this is where things get a bit different than like say SSH. I don't think SSH can launch websites. So here we go, I'll launch my website that I'm integrating with. And very quickly, I'll get into login. I think kind of the most straightforward thing for login is to just ask for a username and password. But as we know, if you've used Stripe or GitHub, authorization and authentication has gotten quite complex. So you probably want to open a web browser. So if we check out this code, which is not production ready from a security point of view yet, I am opening a URL with browser launch, and then I'm gonna listen on this pub sub channel, which side note, Action Cable is actually a really good pub sub framework. If somebody wants to extract that out, it would be very easy, and I think a very interesting project to take on. So anyway, we're gonna open the browser, and then we're gonna wait for a message to come in, the authorization message. And then this looks kind of familiar with controller where you're saying, hey, the current user is equal to this. Except in this case, the current user is actually persisted on a file on the user's computer. So if we run that, log in, we get this kind of approve, deny, CLI thing. And if it all works, we should see, oh, we want to have like a who am I, so that won't work because we don't have it yet. But I've built that here. So we'll uncomment that. We'll run who am I. And oh, I got it right. Brad@brad.com. So I was able to ship, what, 4 features for my CLI without changing any APIs. It was all just done over standard IO and a few other channels. And I'd say that that saves a lot of time. We didn't have anybody from sales emailing us saying, like, hey, you broke the API for our biggest customer, revert it. All right, so where is this at right now? I shipped a prototype. I threw a video out there. Next steps, I'm gonna get this thing working on Rails. I wanna have a good Ruby client and a Rails server to get out there since everybody kind of gets it in terms of compressing complexity. Hopefully that ships in a few weeks. And then after that, if all goes well, I'll ship like a Go front end for this thing so that it can be distributed beyond people who don't have Ruby installed. And I wanna make this work for more servers. So if any server has like a command line application library in it, you can drop Terminalwire into it, just hook into the standard IO and then run it on JavaScript or F# or whatever it may be. So yeah, if this is something that you think you'd be interested in, here's how to get a hold of me, or just find me here. Thank you.
Pretty awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Brett. Maybe one question. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, Brad. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I wanted to ask something, but maybe I'll ask you privately. You know, I don't want people to know.
Question over here.
How does the browser.launch thing work, or is that part of the secret sauce?
It's not really secret sauce. I just figured out, I think there's a gem called Launchy, and the prototype just calls into Launchy and it says, hey, just launch this URL. And that's pretty much it. Kind of conceptually, essentially what I'm building here is just like a web browser that runs in a terminal. It's not going to have graphics and all that stuff, but there's certain things that it should have, including security features. So for example, right now I'm playing around with, okay, well, how does the server write files to the client? Can it delete files from the client? Obviously, you don't want the server just deleting or accessing any file on the client. So there needs to be some kind of entitlements on it. So I'm hoping for the end user, if you install a Terminalwire application, you'll have these assurances of knowing like, hey, I have to grant access to Terminalwire to access these files. So there's a whole layer of security similar to a web browser that'll be built into this that just adds more safety for users than what they might get from a command line application today.
Oh, I know what I want. What to ask? Is it using SQLite?
Pardon?
Is it using SQLite?
SQLite? No. SQLite is great though. I don't even know. Actually, it's not running a database yet. There's no database. It's just a Rails application, and I don't need a database yet. So I'm not persisting anything. But it doesn't matter. Use whatever backend you want. SQLite, Postgres, whatever.